Welcome to my channel, Advanced in Life. And today, before I begin with my actual purpose of this video, audio, let me read out a few lines from the very influential book of all time, How to Win and Influence People. It's about a dog. It's in one of his chapters. This book is written by Dale Carnegie, and he says like this: do this and you will be welcome anywhere. Why read this book? To find out how to win friends. Why not study the technique of the greatest winner of friends the world has ever known? Who is he? You may meet him tomorrow coming down the street. When you get within 10 feet of him, he will begin to wag his tail. If you stop and pat him, he will almost jump out of his skin to show you how much he likes you. And you know that behind this show of affection on his part, there are no ulterior motives. He doesn't want to sell you any real estate, and he doesn't want to marry you. Did you ever stop to think that a dog is the only animal that doesn't have to work for a living? A hen has to lay eggs, a cow has to give milk, and a canary has to sing. But a dog makes his living by giving you nothing but love. So these are the lines I have taken from the famous book How to Win and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Why I have just read this is I am going to connect these lines with my audio now, and I'm here once again with you. Another summary and the four level of animal stories. One of the stories is Shep's Hobby. It's by James Harriet. So here it is. Mr. Bells lived in Highburn Village. One had to walk nearly 20 yards between 5-foot walls to reach his farmyard. On the right, there was the front garden where Shep, S-H-E-P, his dog, stay hidden in order to attack. The dog was fat and big. His limbs were big and his coat was thick. Mr. Bell's cow, Rose, was suffering from an unknown stomach disease. Being old-fashioned types, he did not allow Mr. Harriet, the writer and surgeon, to open her up. Mr. Harriet, the writer and surgeon, to open her up. Mr. Harriet was walking in between the walls, thinking about the cow. All of a sudden, Shep jumped up. His bark was at the highest point. His teeth were only a few inches from Harriet's face. The dog's voice was fit for his size. As a result, the writer jumped up, and then he saw the dog running out of sight. He did not know whether the dog had evil design on him or it was his idea of a joke. The condition of the cow was worse. The writer used the levees. He pumped in 2 gallons of water with formalin and salt, but this did not work, and the following morning he was going to see Mr. Bells, who was in the barn. It was hot summer. He was walking on the warm grass. The air was fresh, mixed with different types of scent. There was silence, and he was alone. Then suddenly he heard a terrible noise. The sky was covered with a hairy foam, and the red mouth was close to his face. Again he saw Shep disappearing. He had never been as terrified as now. Perhaps people might evacuate their bowels at such a moment. He saw the cow in a deeply troubled condition with sunken eyes. He tried with the levees once more, adding treacle to the mixture. He was surprised to see the rose the following afternoon. She was better and looked like a normal cow. Her eyes were bright and full. But Mr. Bells told him that she was a different cow, and he added that Rose had been treated properly by Jim Oakley, the postman, who made the cow run at the fastest speed, and that she became all right. The writer was going back. He heard the rattle of the chain, and the dog attacked him, barked once powerfully at his face, and was gone. This time he thought his heart would stop. He got angry and pulled the chain. The dog was frightened. He tucked his tail in between his legs. He tried to please the writer by showing his upper teeth. He warned the dog not to repeat such behavior and allowed him to get into the kennel. After a month, Mr. Bells called the writer again. He had not lost his faith in him. He was polite and friendly. This time, as he was walking in between the walls, he heard the faint sound of the chain. Shep was hiding there. The writer slowed his steps. He saw the end of the nose moving back. The dog clearly understood the writer could not endure any more nonsense. As he drove away, he did not feel happy. His victory over the dog was useless. He had deprived him of his chief pleasure. Animals also have a right to enjoy. Although Shep's hobby could cause the heart failure, the writer had destroyed something out of his life. Later that summer, he was outside Mr. Bell's farm. He saw a man walking to the opening between the walls. He was a pot mender carrying pots and pans. The dog in the front garden followed the bodiless head. In the middle of the way, the dog jumped, stopped at the top for the moment, and then barked loudly. The man got frightened, and leaving all his pots, he ran away to the far end of the village and disappeared into a shop. Shep was well satisfied and went back to the shade of the tree. The writer got relief because he had not reduced the enjoyment out of the dog's life. Shep was still having fun. 4 levels. Mr. Harriet, writer, went to Mr. Bell's farm to see Rose, one of his cows, which was suffering from an unknown stomach trouble. As he was deeply lost in thought, the dog jumped up, barked, showing the red mouth. This frightened the writer. He gave the levies to the cow, and the following day he went again to know the condition of the cow. He was walking to see Mr. Bells on the green grass, enjoying different kinds of smell of the flowers. It was all silent. All of a sudden, he heard a terrible bark and saw the hairy form covering the blue sky for a moment. He felt that it might cause the evacuation of his bowels. Then he found the cow in a worse condition and tried with the levies, adding treacle to the mixture. The following afternoon, he was happy to see the cow in a better condition. But Mrs. Bells told him that she was a different cow, and that Rose was cured by Jim Oakley, the postman, by making her run at the fastest speed. This time also, Shep frightened him so terribly that he felt his heart would stop. He got angry and rebuked the dog severely. He warned the dog not to frighten him again. When he went to Bell's after a month, he found the dog withdrawing from the wall. When he went to Bell's, the dog frightened a pot mender and was well satisfied. Then the writer felt relieved. Interpretation. The story may be trying to tell us that hobby, recreation, or pleasure is not limited to human beings alone. Animals equally love it. It also says indirectly that human beings want to show their superiority to animals, which is worthless. Every creature has a right to some kind of pleasure. We should not snatch it out of their lives. Some of their hobbies may cause their heart failure, and some may cause the involuntary evacuation of the bowels. But above all, they are merely jokes. They are sources of pleasure and satisfaction, critical appreciation, critical thinking rather. Many of the points in this story are quite acceptable and informative, yet some questions come into our mind when we read it. Do animals enjoy by teasing human being? Is it could not cure? Can a cow run fast if it is dying? Does a dog understand the warning and does it not repeat nonsense behavior? Assimilation. By reading this story, I have come to know so many things about animals. There is not much difference between animals and human beings. Some animals are as meek as the straightforward persons, and some are as bad as naughty children. I used to hate dogs because I thought their main aim was to bite me. I didn't know even their ferocious attacks were just a game. Also, animals are good planners. They have the good sense of time. They know the effectiveness of climactic action. I am sure that I'll love dogs better, but I shall be careful so that they may not cause the involuntary evacuation of my bowels. So that's all about the summary and four levels of reading of the text. So keep in touch with me. I'll be coming up with some more text next.